Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Loughborough, the podcast from Loughborough University that brings interesting interviews from staff and students across the campus, as well as the latest news. I'm your host Jemima. I'm currently a student at Loughborough University studying English with Digital Humanities, and I'm on my placement year in the university's Web and Digital team.
And I'm Soph, I'm Jemima's co-host. I'm the Internal Communications Officer at the university, looking after student and staff comms.
So today we are joined by Spencer and Erin, and would you like to both introduce yourselves and what you do at the university?
I'm Spencer Graydon. I'm the Chief Executive of Imago Venues. Imago makes up the three hotels, Burley Court, the Athlete Centre and the Link, and also Holywell Park Conference Centre. And I'm also the Chief Executive of Loughborough University Nursery. So I get to look after 103 children. Well, I don't really look after them, but I pop in from time to time.
So I'm Erin. I'm also a student at Loughborough University. I'm in my second year of psychology, and I'm the Disability Officer for the LSU, and I chair the Disability Support Network.
Nice, thank you. And we're just going to go into an icebreaker question to get you guys settled into the podcast. And the question is, if you could listen to only one artist/band for the rest of your life, who would it be?
This is quite tricky because I'm fairly convinced I'm the oldest person ever on your podcast. But so the only person I know that's recently released an album I've still listened to is Paul Heaton and Jackie Abbott in their various guises of the House Martins and the Beautiful South and now solo. So I've been listening to them since I was a teenager, so that's quite a long time.
Nice, I think that's a solid option.
So I have a really diverse taste in music. So when I was thinking about that question, I was like, I don't know who I'm going to say, but I do love Dermot Kennedy. I don't know if any of you know who Dermot Kennedy is, but also a bit of ABBA. You can't go wrong with ABBA.
You really can't. And I feel like you can't be sad when ABBA is playing.
No.
There's no sad ABBA listening.
You cannot have a sad ABBA session. It has to be happy and joyful, which I love. So I think I know what your answer is going to be, but would you like to tell the people?
Yes, so to let people behind the scenes a little bit for Let's Talk Loughborough, we do record these episodes a little bit in advance. I had actually not planned for this episode and this icebreaker question to fall on this day, but I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan and her new album is out today. So it would always be Taylor Swift, always and forever. I feel like I'm on track to pretty much just listening to her anyway, so it wouldn't be that much different. What about you, Jemima?
You see, I would say Taylor Swift at my own time, but I knew it was going to be yours. So I came prepared with a backup. Mine would be Hozier. I've loved him since I was little. I think he's amazing. I'm fingers crossed for this tour and this new album to come sometime soon, sometime when I'm alive, so I can go see him. So that's my one artist I'd wish to listen to. So we're going to jump right into the questions. And the first question is, why is Disability History Month important?
I've sort of been mindful of how to answer this really, and I think that there are a couple of points. One was that to take a moment in a year and to actually reflect that it actually is more important than just for 4 weeks. And actually, it's actually all year round. And I think sometimes we can alight on these times, and it becomes in focus for that short amount of time. And so for me, actually, it's a bit of a kick at the backside to remember that it's all the time. And I think why it's important because it brings that back into focus. I was also talking to a colleague of mine, similar age to me, and we started reflecting on the fact of Disability History Month, right? And we started talking about actually, what was it like before we thought about these things and how long ago? And when you think about the actual wording, the word history, if you think about some reflections we had, my own sort of challenges are very much around mental health. Well, I only started talking about it about 3 years ago. So that's 47 years I decided not to talk about it. And I think giving people the opportunity to do that, but also reflect back thinking how far we've come. Now, that's not to say we're where we need to be. And I don't believe, forgive me, I believe there's always a long way to go. But I do think sometimes we should celebrate the fact that we have come away. I think that it's okay to talk about stuff now. It's okay to be open. And that's certainly, I think, a movement. So, Erin, I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I definitely think that, especially in the most recent years since COVID, especially the mental health side of it, so many more people are talking about it, and it is good to recognise like how far we have come. Like you said, there's still a long way to go. There's still so many disabilities and mental health issues that aren't spoken about or are kind of pushed aside. But I do think it's good to recognise how far that we have come as a society talking about disability and mental health. And then for me, Disability History Month is kind of just like giving the opportunity for all disabled individuals to like have a voice. So especially through Disability Support Network, like it is such a big time for us to talk about all the different disabilities, how it affects people. But yeah, I do think it shouldn't just be the 1 month that we think about it, but it definitely is a reminder for us to start the conversation about it.
Fab, thank you. And you mentioned a bit about support. Can you tell us what support is available for students, Erin?
Yeah, so we kind of have two different ways to look at it. So you have the university side of support. So from the staff at the university, they can help with applications for Disabled Students Allowance, which comes from Student Finance England, and they can help you get like all the different needs you might need throughout your university life. So the uni can help you with the application for that. The uni can also offer one-to-one study support, so if your disability affects studies, and one-to-one mental health support. And then there's so many other things like exam adjustments if you need extra time, rest breaks, library loan extensions. There's so many different things that the uni itself can offer, like logistically. They can talk to your academic tutors. They're really good at like the logistics side of it all. And then you have the DSN, Disability Support Network, which is like the community side of it all. So we have our DSN and friends group chats, and then we have subgroup chats as well for like, we'll have a neurodivergence one, a long-term mental health condition one, like every single disability, we've got a group chat for it. And it's really nice to just see a group of people like that can connect with each other for similar experiences that they've had. So if someone has a concern, the chances are that a lot of other people in the group chat have had it. So it's really good to see like from an outsider, because obviously you don't have every disability. Even though I am disability officer, I only have experience in some aspects of it. So it is really nice to see how they can use each other to get support. And then DSN, we also have different events, campaigns and panels. So we've got a panel coming up with Loughborough Women's Network, and that's looking at neurodivergence in females and the barriers that specifically females will face, such as difficulties getting diagnosis because the like portrayal of autism and neurodivergence is a lot different in females and males. So it's just like things like that. It's a really easy way for us to start opening the conversation. And then we have campaigns as well. So we are relaunching our hashtag Don't Diss My Ability campaign for Disability History Month. And the idea of that is just for any disabled staff or students at Loughborough University, they can submit to the campaign. So they can submit a blog post of video content, artwork, poetry, anything that they want to. And it's just a platform for them to talk about their experiences with disability. So yeah, that's the support that we have for students at Loughborough.
Thank you so much. And as you can see from like the list that you gave us, there's immense support here for all students here at Loughborough. And it's amazing the things that you guys do to bring a community together to talk about your shared experiences and to help each other and support each other, which I think is amazing. And then on the other side, for the staff, Spencer, please could you tell us the support we could have as staff at the university?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the first things to say, and there are a couple of groups, and there's a group that I contribute to, but let's not walk past that the first line of support really should be a manager and your team around you. I think that it can be really powerful that when you're a member of a working team, and if you have the confidence to do it and you feel okay to do it, it's got to talk to your manager about what support they can give you, because very often it can be small things along the way that can really change your working environment, and sharing that with your colleagues can also make a big difference I know for me personally, just sharing my own story with my own team makes a massive difference to the way I perform at work. Of course, we have the staff support services where you can have some counselling services, which would focus very heavily around sort of well-being and mental health. And there are 6 sessions of one-to-one counselling that are available for all staff members that they can have per year. And that comes with the Employee Assistance Programme. The Employee Assistance Programme also works across the well-being for the mind, the body and the soul. And so you can have confidential, unlimited support from how you cope with disability to actually how it can impact you legally and other matters. And this is a free service. And perhaps you could include a link or something as part of this so that staff know where to go. I think very often it's really helpful to know where to start and just say, help, I need some help. And that's available 24 hours a day, and that's the Employee Assistance Programme. I think it's also to make sure that we're recognising those people that want to help, those mental health first aiders that are around the campus, both particularly for the professional services team. And then I think, as Erin mentioned, some support groups. One of the groups that I'm really involved in is the inclusivity group, where we try and recognise those that may not have actually a very clearly physical disability, but also those that do. And that's a great network where we organise some evening events, and there's a regular Teams catch-up, and that's sponsored by key professional services people. Could we do more? Sure. Should we do more? Yeah. But I think that we have to recognise that we've got these things in place, and please reach out to some of those groups.
Yeah, absolutely. And to pick up on that, we will have the Disability History Month website, which will have links out to both the groups and the resources both within the university and externally. So if you search Disability History Month Loughborough, you will find it, and it will also be in your staff and your student newsletters and on the internal news as well. So lots of places that you can find it, because as you said, there's a huge amount out there, and I can imagine it can be quite overwhelming at first, but there is something for everyone within it. So yeah, we will make sure that that is very clearly signposted.
So our next question is there support for staff and students who are waiting for a diagnosis? So people may have gone already to go and try and get a diagnosis, but obviously these things take time. So is there support for them while that is happening?
So for the university side of it, the students can get support with getting the diagnosis. So if they think that they've got a disability, often a hidden disability, they can speak to the student wellbeing and inclusion team at the university, and they often have pre-assessment things to give them a general idea of if it's worth you trying to get a diagnosis, because obviously, like you said, it can be a really long process. So that's what the uni can do. And then Disability Support Network, you don't need a diagnosis to get involved in anything that we do, because obviously we acknowledge all the different barriers that there are to get a diagnosis. But if you need the support, then that is what we're there for. So yeah, you don't need an official diagnosis to get support through Disability Support Network.
For those staff members across campus, I draw you towards the Wellbeing framework. This was created by the university to support inclusive and empower the workplace individuals, and the university is really keen to work with those wellbeing champions that can help and support, as well as with managers. And I think particularly for those people that are working across campus, that wait to be diagnosed or to be seen can be difficult, can be personally quite telling. So I think including a manager wherever possible is really important, as well as some of these other support groups. And I've already called out the inclusivity group. Emma, the dean over at that group, is fab, and I know is a great resource across campus.
There's also the student wellbeing and inclusivity team also offer workshops. I think they've just started running workshops for people who want more support if they think they might have ADHD but have not had a diagnosis yet, so they can go along, find out a little bit more, find out what the paths are for getting a diagnosis if that's the kind of path they choose. So there's definitely some options there for people as well if they want to start that journey, but like you both said, there's plenty of support even if you choose not to go that route.
So we've covered a lot about the support, but also let's talk about this year's theme for Disability Health, Disability History Month, and it is Disability Health and Wellbeing. So what are both of your thoughts on this? Do you have any personal experiences that you'd like to share and uncomfortable sharing with us?
So I know that a lot of the focus has been on like the COVID aspect of it, and how through COVID a lot of disabled individuals were more at risk from the coronavirus, so they had to isolate more and they didn't get the support that they needed. So I think that's been like a massive awakening for a lot of people about like the support that disabled students and anyone generally, not just students and staff at university, but just the disabled community. They definitely didn't get as much support as they did need through COVID. So yeah, I think COVID has been a massive awakening to that, but also a lot of the things that I focus on is the impact of living with a disability on mental health. So a disability that isn't a long-term mental health condition. So for example, if you've got a physical disability, meaning that you can't access certain venues and things like that, like there's so many different things that can impact your mental health because of the disability. So you might feel isolated, especially if people don't really understand it. So if you've got like autism and people aren't aware of ASD and how that might affect you, then you've got microaggressions and bullying, and then the exhaustion side of it as well. So if you've got a disability that like physically exhausts you, that can be mentally exhausting as well. So I think it's just realizing like how much a disability can affect an individual.
I think, Erin, I can only echo that. I think that there are, very often there are both those physical and seen disabilities, and then those ones that are unseen, and both can have pretty catastrophic and traumatic effects on any individual. A little bit of my story, just for a minute or two, is that I was somebody that suffered for years with anxiety and depression. I just didn't choose to call it anxiety or depression. I just said I had a good mood and a bad mood. But because I didn't look after my health, and I wasn't looking after my well-being, and I wasn't being sensible, and I didn't reach out to anybody, I actually ended up in hospital on suicide watch at the age of 46, 47 probably. And so it took me a long time to make sure that actually I needed to do something about it. I think one of the reasons I was very keen to join the podcast today was I know that this is listened to by a lot of students, and I was, a number of staff across the campus. But it's never too early to start talking about this stuff. And, it might sound crazy, as I say, I'm 50 now. I didn't start talking until I was 47. So that's a very long time of trying to think you can fix it yourself. What I've worked out is I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not a doctor, right? So I could never fix it myself. I needed help. And I think that the point that Erin makes, it just made me reflect actually, is how having a really physical disability that can just be, bloody challenging. I can't go in the building I want. Why did they put a step there and not a ramp? Why did they make it that the door's hard to find? I think would just chip away at your confidence daily. And I think that just thinking about how we can help people as we see people around surely has to be something that we could take with us. For me, I try and do a couple of three things now to try and help. And I go for a walk with a friend, because a walk with a friend does two things. A, I'm the least athletic person on Loughborough campus. I've checked, it's a fact. And so having a little walk, but then having a little talk with a friend in some fresh air just brings a little bit of sunshine into my day. It doesn't matter who it is. And I don't keep things to myself. I'll chat for Britain. And I think it's important that we find people that are happy to do that and to bring people in. Not everybody's going to want to open up. Nobody's going to chat. Some people are really private, and that's okay. but everybody needs somebody, and I think we need to get there. And so for me, when it comes to health and well-being, is actually the more I talk to people now, and I've opened up, is they make it the most important thing, not second or third or fourth, or before their job, before their career, before their studies. You know what's really important is they eat well, they have the right thing, they have enough water in a given day. I don't know how it works now, but sleep now to me is more important than it's ever been in my life. I think it's because as I get grayer, I need more sleep. And make sure that a little bit of exercise, however you get it. There's a really simple acronym that I tell everybody about. It's called SHED, and it seems to mean sleep, hydrate, exercise, and diet. Just get some sleep, drink enough water, do some exercise, and don't eat rubbish every day of your life. If you can kind of do that, it's kind of going to help you. And so I think very often we make health and well-being less important than many other things. You will be a better person if you are healthy and you're looking after your well-being. So for me, I think they have to go first, not second. But I really thank you for your comments, Erin, because it's really made me think a little bit differently. So not only am I always happy to contribute, I'm always happy to learn. And I've really learned something from your contributions, so thank you.
I think that's really nice. And I think, I completely would echo both of you. And to build on what you said as well, Disability History Month is not just for people who have disabilities, it's for everyone. If you are not affected personally by a disability, maybe have a look around at your workplace and think, like you said, why is there a step there and not a ramp? Going for a walk with a friend, if you know that they might suffer from anxiety, there's so much stuff that we can all get involved in to chip away at the stigmas and at the problems, and to ultimately try and create somewhere that is good for everyone. I mean, nothing is ever going to be perfect, but we can certainly try. Jemima, do you have anything to add?
I just say it makes you think, doesn't it? Like you said, like even if you don't have a disability, you've got to think about what's going on around you and be aware. And it's just showing that compassion and understanding that not everyone can get up those stairs, but why are those stairs? There's like a way that you can be accessible throughout your life, and checking up on people and mental health wise, like going on walks and just checking up on people and just being compassionate, I think. But also what you said about SHED and like making sure that you're sleeping well, hydrating, eating, exercising and dieting, eating well. I think it's a thing that we often forget in our busy everyday lives. I think everyone nowadays is just always busy. There's always something to do, but you forget really to take care of yourself. So I think it's really important that we go back to the basics and set some boundaries in place for yourself as well, in terms of make sure you're getting like your 8 hours or 7 hours, make sure you're only having like one junk food a week or something like that.
That would be very good discipline, Jemima. One junk food a week. I'm not sure I can sign up to that. I think we should keep it realistic.
Yeah, I was going for a ballpark figure, but yeah, be realistic.
I'd just like to share two things, if I may. And one of them is I tell everybody that works in my business, and I tell everybody that I ever give a talk to, particularly about mental health, which is there's a really simple throwaway question that we ask each other every day, which is, how are you? I tell my team, only ask the question, how are you, if you're prepared for the answer, which might take 5, 10, 15 minutes. So just think about the next time you say, how are you? Be prepared to say, no, I really want to know how you are, as opposed to fine, because fine isn't really an answer. And, you talked about how we can help people and all that. You know what? It's just being kind. And even if you don't have any mental health challenges or some physical challenges, whatever else, just do something kind a day. It's going to make you feel better. I don't like to work with people who aren't kind. One of the key values at Imago is kindness. And if you can't be kind, I don't need to work here. So for me, if you can't do one kind thing a day, Yeah, I think you've got a long way to look at yourself. So just a couple of points to pull out, which you can insert or excerpt out of the podcast.
It really resonated with me, Spencer, when you said like it's never too early to get the help, because especially over COVID times, that was when I was really struggling with my personal mental health. I struggled with depression and anxiety as well. And a lot of the time, like, you think, oh, everyone has bad mental health, or you can just get through it. And like you said, we're not psychiatrists or psychologists. Like, you shouldn't have to deal with it yourself. There's so much support out there for you. And it's just knowing where to go, really. So I think like having conversations like this is really important, so people know where to go for the help, and also that you don't have to look after yourself. Like, talking about it is like just as important.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I think that COVID was a challenge, I think, for a lot of people. I had been in hospital for about 5 weeks. I was in the Priory for about 5 weeks. And I came out just before we locked down. So I came out in the end of the February, we locked down in the March. And I found it really difficult because I'm not used to being in the house. I'm not used to being at home. I'm not, I'm used to being at work and out. And I found some of that particularly isolating. I found it very difficult. And so, I think that a lot of people what could have happened, I can only speak for myself really, but I think it exacerbated some of those feelings that maybe may have been kept in check a little bit because you had your routines, and the minute they go, or you have more time to think, we all know how good we are. Those of us with anxiety and depression, we can, even if we had nothing to worry about, we'd worry about the fact we've got nothing to worry about, right? So, so we can build everything into a disaster. And I think that really taught me through that time that you've really got to sort of keep reaching out. And for me anyway, because I was certainly no good in my own head for long chunks of time.
Yeah, definitely. And I always thought like if I kept myself busy, then it was fine because I didn't have the time to deal with my depression and anxiety. And then COVID hit, and I was like, I have the time now, so I've got no excuse.
I'll show you anxiety. Look at this.
Yeah.
I think from that as well, it's really like beautiful to see that the community is still like grown. I think a lot of communities like after COVID definitely dwindled, and some people were still isolated even coming out of COVID. Even now, 2 years on, or like a year and a bit on, like people can't find that community. But the fact that people can find the Disability Students Network or the staff network and find people like them and relate to them and have that support is just truly like a wonderful thing as well. And it goes along with the whole thing of being kind and just showing compassion, especially in these times. So we'll go to the last question today. So are there any resources, books, programs, any kind of media that are related to disability that you would recommend to others?
I pulled this with me. So this is a book, you may be able to see it, I don't know. It's called Reasons to Stay Alive by Matt Haig. And if you've not read it, read it. And if you have read it, then tell somebody else to read it. The reason I tell you this story is that my mate, my oldest friend from school, is a community psychiatric nurse. And when I told him I got mental health challenges, he was like, Spence, come on, don't be stupid. You're just one of the worried well, there's nothing wrong with you. And he wouldn't accept it. And about 18 months later, even after I've been in hospital, still wouldn't accept it. And then one day, this little book came through the post, and he'd just written on the inside, sorry, mate, I get it now. And that little book there, can I tell you, you can read it in a day, right? But I think that it's a really powerful book. So Matt Haig, he's got a few other books, but Reasons to Stay Alive is a great reference. There are two things that I use or have used. Headspace is an app. I think you have to pay for it. So forgive me, I'm not sure. I found Headspace and actually taking the time to do some mindfulness really works. And you can imagine, you can hear from my accent, I'm from the cheap seats in Birmingham. So trying to convince people that I'm doing mindfulness was certainly a challenge. But I certainly found it helped me. And then also, you may have come across the website Calm, which is a campaign against living miserably. I also think that's a really good resource. And, you know, I think for most people, there is stuff out there. Just find out what works for you. And I think that's the important thing. There is no one size answer. And so just keep prodding around until you find out what it is. Talk to lots of people, because somebody will have a gem somewhere.
Yeah, I think there really is something for everyone, whether that's a podcast, a book, a magazine. I know on the Disability History Month uni website, there's going to be a list of like external resources that's got a lot of good links to videos and stuff. But I've got two here. One of them is called Camouflage, the Hidden Lives of Autism. I think that's really interesting for people who don't know anything about autism, because I feel like there's a lot of stereotypes and misconceptions. So to like read about someone with first-hand experience is so important. And then there's also a website called Sick Magazine, and it's a magazine by sick and disabled people. So again, the like personal experience of it, and there's also a massive reading list on there as well. So that is a really good website. I'd recommend having a look at that. But also I'd say like talking to the people that have lived through it first-handedly, because it's all well and good like going on Google and finding out about it, but Google hasn't experienced it, the people around us have, which is why I find the panel events especially that we put on is like so important, because it is people that have been through it themselves and like talking about their experiences, and I think that's the best way you can learn about disability.
Absolutely. Usually for these questions I give a whole list of books because I am a big book nerd, but I actually realized when I was looking through kind of the books I've read over the past year that actually a lot of the times that I've read books that have featured disabled characters, it's almost like they're always the villain, and it really bothered me. And so I'm not going to include any of those because it actually made me really cross. So I've gone for a TV show instead, because like you said, I think listening to people's experiences firsthand is a really good way to get a better understanding. And I watched a TV show. It's fictionalized, but I believe it's based on the actor's real life. It's a TV show called Special. It's on Netflix. The main character has cerebral palsy, and it talks about him kind of going out, getting his first job, having his first relationship, and kind of the challenges that he experiences with that almost more on an emotional level, like whether his colleagues understand like the adjustments that he needs, you know, whether his first partner is really going to understand what he needs emotionally. Like there's a whole scene about him kind of saying like, I'm not helpless, I'm perfectly capable of doing things, I don't need you to baby me. And it was really powerful, a really, really powerful show. And it's also absolutely hilarious. It's a comedy as well, so there's some real great light-hearted moments in it as well. So I really recommend that if you haven't watched it. All the episodes are like 20 minutes long, so I really did binge watch both seasons, which I maybe wouldn't advise. Maybe take it nice and slow and take your time with it. But yeah, I really recommend it.
My recommendation, it really did stump me when I was thinking about it and trying to find one, because I don't think I consume enough like media related to like disability, and I think that's what I want to change, because I want to have very inclusive media and what I like digest and stuff. But I did read another book by Matt Haig, The Midnight Library, which is quite well known, and it's about a woman who suffers with depression, and she like goes through the many routes of her life that it could take. And I remember reading it and being like, I was crying, which is very apt for me. I am a crier, but it was just like really interesting on how it's like his take on depression and how he like depicted it. But also I would put a trigger warning, like if you do suffer with that, tread lightly, tread carefully, make sure you're in the right headspace to consume that, because it can be quite triggering. But it was like really interesting about just all these different lives she could have lived, but she goes down this path.
I don't know if you guys can help me at all, but there is a book, and I might get the title wrong, where the lead character is the hero and has autism. And is it the curious incident of the dead dog
The
in
dog
the
in the
night?
nighttime.
Is that the right way around?
Yeah, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. It's
Yeah.
a really good book and stage
Yeah.
production.
Yeah, I've seen the play. I've read the book, and it's just when you were saying, Soph, about how they're always the villain, and actually that was the one book that stuck in my mind, that he was the hero. So there is one out there. There is one.
Yes,
Work on some more.
That has reminded me, I have actually read that book, but such a long time ago. It was I have like a real thing where I have to like record all the books that I read, but I think I read that book like before I started doing that. So very poor memory, so I had forgotten. But yes, I did. I really enjoyed that book, and I didn't know it was a stage production, so I might have to go online and have a little look and see if that's showing anywhere.
I remember the book was actually like on my like brother or sister's reading list, which I thought was really good, and like understanding young. So my sister's 10 years younger than me, and then my brother's like only 3. So they were understanding quite young like what it means to like maybe be autistic and having that discussion. And the stage production, amazing. There's a real life dog. I was thrilled. I loved it. But also it just shows such bravery of Christopher. I think if I remember right, that's the main character's name. But it shows such bravery in like how he copes with all the challenges that come his way, especially the London Tube, which I also struggle with still. So it is, the stage production, go watch it immediately, but also the book, amazing as well. So that, I think, concludes the end of the episode. Is there anything else anyone wants to say before I sign us off?
Like I mentioned before, we do have our campaign, #Don'tDissMyAbility. So if anyone is listening, staff or students at Loughborough University, and have either first-hand or second-hand experience of a disability, please do get in touch with the Disability Support Network. We have an Instagram and Facebook and a Twitter account, and you can also email me at wndisabilityofficer@lsu.co.uk, and we'd love to hear about your stories, because like we said before, there's no better people to hear it from.
And I'm sure we'll have all of those links in the description box, so you guys can get involved, especially for the staff stuff as well. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. You've been fountains of knowledge and wisdom, and it's been lovely having you on the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to Let's Talk Loughborough on all streaming platforms, or you can watch the podcast on the Loughborough University YouTube channel.
Thanks so much for listening, and feel free to share any future podcast episodes you have with us. Spencer, Erin, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.